nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call the roll. Jana Dykett.
Present.
Kelly Hooper. Present. Joe Petrowski.
Here.
Timothy West.
Present.
Joshua Diandawali.
Present.
Amelie Grew.
Present.
And I am here as well. Adjustments to the agenda?
There are none this evening, but I would like to remind everyone, for those who are listening, and we do have an audience tonight, that you need to make sure you speak up so they can hear you on the owl.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Committee meeting of February 24th and March 3rd, 2021, as written or with corrections.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, I will call the vote by show of hands, for those of us who can. Jana, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, vote is carried unanimously. Superintendent's report.
I submitted my,
Give a second copy of minutes.
she did read both,
Yep.
February 24th and
Oh,
March
you did
3rd.
both at one
I
time?
did.
Oh, gee, I was before.
Thank you, Joe.
So I submitted my report in writing. I'm happy to answer any questions with respect. A number of the things that are on there are also on the agenda tonight, so we'll get to them when it's that time. I have a number of other things I'll try to run through real quickly. First of all, I just want to remind you all that the meeting second meeting in April is April 28th, not April 21st. It's during the April break, so April 28th, not April 21st. And make sure we get more information to you regarding that. Remind everyone that the next meeting, April 7th, the auditor will be here from RKO. They're our auditors, and I gave you a copy of the audit report. And I'm going to talk a little. I'm happy to talk a little. Well, actually, I want to talk a little bit about that under the budget piece a little bit later. Just want to let you all know that I did get my shot today. I was fortunate enough to be able to go and get the one shot, the Johnson & Johnson. So I got that done today. Colleen and Ida and I all went together to get that done today. So I'm excited about that, and it didn't hurt at all, and it was pretty quick and painless. So I'm pretty happy. We'll see how I feel tomorrow moving forward. And I just want to talk real quickly. There was some discussion about the process of posting minutes, and it was somewhat related to town business, which we can talk about if we want to, but I think I would encourage us to focus on school-related issues at the school committee, and not on town business, which is their business. But what I'd like to suggest, and this is a practice I've used in the past, typically what we've been doing at this point is we don't post our minutes until they've been approved. What I'd like to suggest that we do, is the practice I've had in other places, is as soon as they're written, and Colleen can get them done within a day or two, or by early next week at the latest, post them as draft minutes. I mean, if you think about it, we don't make really major changes in our minutes anyway. We can get the minutes out within days of the meeting, and I think that I've always received very positive feedback on that. So we want to be in charge of turning them off. All the way around. We'll be on.
Don't ask me. Janet was the only one who turned it off.
Okay. All right, so anyway, so I'd like to suggest, and I guess unless there's objection, that's what I'd like to do moving forward, is we will post them as draft minutes. And as soon as they are approved by the school committee, we'll take the word draft off. Janet, did you want to weigh in on that? No? Okay. Sorry, I thought she was trying to pass something.
No, I was sneezing.
I heard that too, but God bless you. Yeah, I thought you were trying to say something too. So that's what I have in addition to my report. We have some appointments tonight. We have our Jessica Morgan in middle school special ed in Tech 3. And we we have our spring coaches, as all of this is really just for informational. We are looking for a JV baseball coach, and we are looking for, that's it, I guess. And no resignations, but we have 2 retirements to share with you this evening. One is Mr. Ladd, who's here, has submitted his letter after a year or 2 as serving in that position at the grade school. I know it's been a challenge. That's something Jeff has been thinking about, and so I certainly wish him well, and hopefully things will lighten up a little bit, and we'll be able to do something more formal for him and some of our other retirees soon. So he's here if you want to share things about him, whatever you want to do. Catherine Gillis-Sultan, our Learning Lab teacher, is also retiring at the end of this year. Also has been in the position for a long time, and so she is choosing to not return. Is going to retire. She's not moving to a different position. She is retiring. No transfers this evening. So, anybody have anything they want to add?
I just wanted to make a comment about Mr. Ladd. My children, when they came to Winthrop Public Schools, they were beyond grade school, so I didn't get the pleasure to know Mr. Ladd that way. But I have served on a committee with him, and I just wanted to say I always felt his input was so thoughtful and accurate and organized, and he did all kinds of surveys, and he just did a lot of stuff like that, and I really appreciate that about him. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
It was a good comment that you made in spite of that.
Turn your sound off and your speaker, no
Better?
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to say I appreciated that about Mr. Ladd. I just always really enjoyed his input, and he always made me think deeper.
First comment.
Okay.
Do you want me to read that for you?
Sure.
It just says, congratulations to Mr. Ladd. He has been a wonderfully dedicated administrator for the district. Thank you, Jeff. And then a second comment, Mr. Ladd will be greatly missed at WGS.
Thank you. I don't really have a chair report tonight, but I do just want to let the committee know that next meeting on the 7th, we will be talking about the format we want to use for the superintendent evaluation. So if you have any thoughts or suggestions, forms, whatever, you can bring that to that meeting. Committee reports. Finance.
I am looking at the warrants we did. Okay, we did payroll 18, 18A, 18B, and 18C, and general warrants 15, 16, 16A, and 16B. And by we, that was Kelly and I.
Excellent, thank you. For the policy committee, we met this evening, and we have 5 or 6 policies to bring for first reading at our next meeting, April 7th, at the school committee. And also, we have 1 policy today that's for consideration under new business, and we will address that then. Negotiations?
We just continue to work on language changes, suggestions, and the budget. Continue to work on finding common grounds.
Okay, thank you. Anything for curriculum?
No updates, thank you.
Renovation?
No updates. Actually, I'm sorry, I do. I have reached out we're pending approval for the ESSER funds. I have reached out to try to secure work with GD Roofing, some projects that need to be done. They are pending the approval of the ESSER grant. That was sent back to us. Megan has submitted it. Came back to us, and all of the major projects that they're recommending that we think that we're concerned about, want to expedite because of COVID issues. We want to get that on there, and so we have been in touch with them already, so we can schedule them to get it all done this summer. We don't want to wait till for final approval because we may not get them on the summer schedule if we wait a long time. Related to that, Mr. Ladd met with me today. The work on siding the grade school, we got a really good bid in for that, and I basically asked him to do the same thing. He's going to reach out to the company and try to secure them, get that under contract so that we will be able to get that work done this summer. So nothing with respect to the new construction and maintenance. I will say that there's potential for us to have a conversation about possibly shifting some things around when we get that second round of ESSER funds, because we may be able to, not be able, if we choose to, I should say it that way, if we choose to, we can use it to look at, we can't do new construction, but we can do things like portables and other things like that we may want to consider, at least as a temporary situation to deal with concerns that have been brought up here at the grade school.
Thank you. Administrators' reports.
So those are in your packets, and I will just say that most of them are here to answer questions. If you want to make you aware that Mr. Stoneton is online, as is Erin Weeks. She's online as well, and Josh Farr is online as well. If you want to ask any of them questions about reports or anything related to their areas.
Any questions?
I just had one question. The 36 kindergartners, is that a normal? Or is that, said the 36 kindergarten students for 2021, 2022 for pre-registration, is that a normal amount?
That's low. It's very early on right now, but with all of the COVID, I think that's really distracting people from registering, but both our preschool and kindergarten numbers are low right now. I do anticipate they're going to go up as the environment continues to improve and people are less worried about dealing with the COVID.
I had a question for Mr. Ladd. It looked like the student number went up by 5. Is that from, I think, February to March? Is that new people moving in, or?
It's a couple of new students, also some homeschool students that have returned, and then we have some remote students that are returning on a fairly regular basis at this point.
Right.
So let me add to that. I know it's an ongoing concern for Jeff and Jolene. We had said nothing's really changed since the beginning of the year when we talked about it worked out perfectly for us that we had about 20% of our students choose to be remote. That gave us adequate space for the distancing that we're required to follow. And now we've had more students coming back at the grade school, really getting to the point of hitting that threshold of having to worry about spacing, and even more so at the middle school. Middle schools had a number of students. They were tight to begin with, and as people are coming back, and it's a double-edged sword. It's great that people are starting to feel that they can come back or are comfortable coming back to school. But the worst-case scenario would be that we don't get some relief from the DOE about our distancing, which is we continue to put pressure on them. And if too many people come back, we're going to have to go to a hybrid like other schools have had to do, a 2-day a week, and I'm pretty opposed to that, and my guess would be that the community would be pretty be opposed to it as well. And we've been pretty fortunate to be able to stay with the 4 days for the length of time we have, and I really want us to be able to finish the year doing that. But unless we get some relief from the DOE or the CDC on spacing, then it's going to be problematic for us.
Just related to that, since we put in the O2 prime ventilation system, have they given you any direction on that as far as?
That was it's a great question. That was my last, every Thursday I meet with the Kennebec Valley superintendents, and Dan Schutter, the deputy commissioner, meets with us every week, and Eileen King from Municipal Management meets with us as well. They're part of that, many-headed monster that's sort of guiding this whole practice. And they've done it, from my perspective overall, they've done an amazingly great job. But that was my specific question to them. Schools that have gone above and beyond in terms of using our money to make our schools safer, and from a standpoint of air filtration and those types of things, should we get some consideration? If they want to just say people still have to distance a certain amount, I think there ought to be a process for us to apply for consideration. I feel very strongly in saying this, that I think our work that we've done here makes our buildings safer than any other place these kids and the teachers can be. Even the grade school, which doesn't have the same, they don't have the O2 prime, they have the ARIS filters, but those are still exceptionally effective, and our classrooms are going to be safer and safer. And as we start to get towards warmer weather, then we should be able to even more ensure that by keeping our windows open, and things that a lot of our people did all winter. So I'm hoping that they will give that some strong consideration, look for schools that are doing an exceptional job like us, and give us the exception to say you can go to 3 feet. Somewhere today, there was something I read today that said it's actually less than 3 feet is what they're recommending. So some changes, it's pretty universal amongst the superintendents that those changes need to be made in order for us to come back to school 5 days a week, which is our goal.
Did they give you any indication that they were actually working on?
They are. There's a committee.
Redesigning these guidelines?
There's a committee that's been formed. Superintendents are at the table with that group, and that's why we keep getting feedback and giving it to them to bring to the table.
Awesome, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I just have a couple more. I noticed there was something about Maine Rocks, music education. Can anybody tell me about what that is? Because that sounds kind of exciting.
Mr. Ladd.
I can give you some words from Mrs. Biddlecom. She says, "I love using little kids' rock curriculum in my classroom. They believe in getting modern band, rock-style instruments into every kid's hands so they can explore and instantly make music. I currently have students in 3rd through 5th jamming on ukuleles, keyboards, and drums in my classroom. It is a student-centered approach that teaches children to play music using popular musical styles they know and love, including rock, reggae, pop, and also how to improvise and make their own original music." Mrs. Biddlecom does an amazing job with the kids. They're all on instruments on a regular basis. Hasn't been very much singing going on, although with the restrictions relaxed a little bit, there's a little whisper singing. But in terms of making music, playing music, reading music, rhythm, this program will help her. She is now a recognized instructor, and once she completes the professional development, then we will be a recognized school for that. And it will be a great lead up for hopefully being able to offer our band program again next year.
In addition to that, I have to see Mr. Biddlecom when I was walking around today. As part of this recognition that Mr. Ladd had reported on before, she doesn't know exactly what it's going to look like. Maybe you do. Some equipment that she has won by getting this recognition, one for the school. She doesn't know what it is yet, and I did tell her that as soon as we knew that Mr. Ladd will be reporting that to you guys.
Awesome. Maybe someday they could perform for us. make some comments that I'm really excited about the 8th grade step up because I have an 8th grader. So I read in your report what's going to be happening, Mr. Campbell, and that sounds really exciting. And also, my 8th grader also made sure that I saw the YouTube video of that Ms. Knowlton made. I can't tell you how much she loved that video, how much it meant to her, so I just wanted to say a thank you to Ms. Knowlton for doing that. She does those kind of things all the time, and it really does make a difference for the kids. For the high school, my daughter was very grateful that you moved the March Madness because she was one of the quarantined children, and that's the first thing she said was, I'm going to miss March Madness and I want to play floor hockey. So thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. And congratulations to Kerrigan and Azuski for being the valedictorian, and Jacob Smith for being a salutatorian, and to the rest of the top 10. Great job. Old business. The budget.
Yeah, nothing to talk about there. So we pass these out around here. This is still a work in progress. So as we're passing these around, I'm going to plant the seed that I'd like to think that we had scheduled next week for a workshop, and sort of the plan was that we would continue to have a conversation tonight, and that perhaps we would have our workshop next week. I'd like to believe that we don't need the workshop next week, and that we would continue to have a conversation tonight. I'll share a lot of information to share tonight around the development of the budget, and it's all, from my perspective, amazingly good. And once we conclude that discussion, we can decide. What I'm hoping to get is that you will concur that we don't need to meet next week, and that we can put this on the agenda April 7th to approve the budget. And in this, at the end of this agenda are some of the other important dates. April 12th is when I meet with the town council. June 7th, and I asked this multiple times, is when the town council will vote on our budget. And it's undecided about the budget validation vote, but it'll be shortly after that, hopefully within a few days.
Well, I was worried that they would do what they've done in the past, they have the next day.
It has to be 3 days, so it can't be within 3 days.
We need time for people to understand things, right?
Yeah. Well, the informational part of it should happen from April 12th to June 7th. We should do whatever we need to do to make information available to the general public. So let me start at the beginning in terms of the bottom line, and then I'll kind of explain how we got there. If you look at the sheet that I just handed out to you, and I'm sorry I don't have, it's not really for public consumption yet because it's a draft still. The net budget, is actually a reduction of $5,119.58. And then you add in adult ed and school nutrition. And again, Josh and Aaron are on Zoom if you have questions for them. Those two programs, which are separate from the regular budget, net out is a reduction of $4,000. And so then you go all the way to the bottom. That's all. The top part, the first two sections are expenditure sides, and then the bottom is the revenue side, and that's where we were really in very rough shape, because first line says that we are losing $296,000 and change from the state for subsidy this year, primarily due to the loss of students, primarily due to COVID-19. So we're losing almost $300,000. Tuition, we're guesstimating will stay about the same, and we actually may gain some, but that's a different, we don't need to get into that. E-rate, it's one of the things that Mike is that's a pretty conservative guess. We might be able to make a little bit more than that. I think Mike is more on top of E-rate than we've had in the past, so we're hoping, we look for a modest gain there. Main care, we have a $30,000 reduction, and that may be still wishful thinking, that we we are not going to make that this year. So, and that may still be too much money there, so we may be looking at more of a loss there than we are projecting. Gate receipts, we left it the same. Who knows what next year is gonna look like? If we have a football season and a basketball season and we're able to have people attend, then we can probably realize those gate receipts. If we don't, then we're not gonna get that. That's not, that's not a huge impact in terms of the whole budget. It's only $5,000. So, but it is important to look at that. Miscellaneous revenue is a number of different things. We just kind of look at different places where that's come from. And so again, that's a modest number. That's $15,000 total. Anticipating about a $3,000. That can be in the form of gifts. That comes into us in a number of different ways. So the bottom line is that we were looking at even with a negative budget, we were looking at an increase of about $305,000 to the taxpayers because of the loss of revenue from the state. So I sent out to the whole school committee last week or the week after this sheet. I don't know if I sent it to you, Josh. Should have, and Amelie, I apologize, I didn't send it to both of you. But this is amazingly good news. I took me like a week of checking with people to make sure that I wasn't living in a alternative universe or something. And in all credit, Jana was here. Well, she's here on Zoom, but you know, she's been saying this for some time. I just wasn't what I was told when I met earlier in the year with the auditor, with Vernice Boyce from the town side, and with Jeff Colbert, the town manager. We were not hearing the same information. So when they both told me, and then other people told me, and then she showed me, which is the sheet that I sent to all of you, that the status of our indebtedness to the town has changed 180 degrees. It's just amazing. So you can see this, and it's in your audits that I sent you. This is one of the pages, to me, the most important page. Our debt to the town is zero. We owe the town nothing. Subsequently, I mean, that's good news. The great news to me is if you look at the sheet I sent you, and I didn't flag what page it was in there, but there's another indebtedness that we have as a school system. We are required to accrue our summer salaries and benefits, and our summer salaries and benefits have also been accrued. So we don't owe anything more to ourselves in that respect to accrue the summer salaries. So that's just unbelievably awesome news. That's like finding $1.5 million. It was just amazing. Jeff Colbert did a great job of sort of explaining how that came to be, and that it is really real, and that we can count on it. So he and I had a number of conversations. How that impacts his budget is really simple. Now, and this happens in most school systems that are whole. When a whole means what I just described, they don't owe their towns anything, don't owe their summer salaries anything. They can then look at their budget, the balance, and if there's a balance, and there should be, and I'll explain that more in a second, then you can project what you think you're gonna carry over, and you can use some of that, all of it if you want to, but it's not a great practice, to offset any potential tax increases. So after Jeff and I talked, we agreed that we would carry over $310,000 of our projected balance forward. And ask me about this all you want, because there's a lot to this, and this actually makes a lot of sense from some of the actions that the school committee took early in the year to get us to this point. So what that means is, even with the $305,000 deficit from the state, the net impact on the taxpayers here in Winthrop for this budget is a negative number. It's a minor negative number, but it's not a plus. It's minus $5,025.52. I'm sorry. Yes, that is exactly right. So the budget stayed flat, the revenues went down, the carryover went up, and so we have that number. So what I want to point out to you, and this is just to test your memories a year from now, the number of $310,000 of carryover is not a great number to carry over. And the reason I say that is the guidance from the Department of Education or from the State Auditing Service office, whatever it's called, says that schools can carry over up to 3% of their budget. So for us, 3% of our budget would be $360,000. However, and I think this is easy to understand, if we carried over $360,000 next year, and then the year after we only had $100,000 to carry over, we've now created a $260,000 hole. So it would be bad if we have no money to carry over, and it's bad if we carry over too much money. That means we will not have used taxpayer money wisely. We would have raised money that we didn't need. So ideally, then I would like to see us carry over between 150, 180,000, which is somewhere between 1 and 1.5%. And while that number might sound like a lot of money to people, it is. I'm not trying to say it isn't. But if you think about, if we carry over 1.5% as money that was not expended, what that means is that our budget at 1.5% carryover ran 98.5% efficient. There aren't many household budgets that are much smaller and easier to manage that run 98.5% efficient. So the guideline from the state is that your budget should run at least 97% efficient. We can't by statute overexpend our budget. And the idea that on a $12+ million budget that we would spend exactly that number is unrealistic. So this number, 310, represents more than I'd like to carry over. But I don't anticipate we're going to lose another $300,000 next year from the state. So we should be able to offset the money. If we get an additional $150,000 more from the state next year, we can bump down the amount we have to carry locally. Second part of that, and this is a big thing. Oh, Jenny, you're listening to this, right?
I'm listening.
So the other big thing is we are anticipating that we probably will we have more than $310,000 to carry over. So what do? I think conventional wisdom might say, well, you just give it back to the taxpayers, and that's great. But if you have other things that you need to spend the money on, you've already raised it. Taxpayers have already raised that money to pay for school. So if schools have other issues that are not specifically in the budget, for instance, we have two major areas, three, depending on how creative you want to be, that always require a great deal of money and always really fluctuate in the budget that we can think about. One is technology. Technology is an ongoing issue. And the second is capital improvements. So we have, we already mentioned earlier that we're looking at ESSER funds. So we now, because we are whole on the town side, can think about earmarking some of the money to put into can't call it a reserve, it's, oh my God, I can't think what it's called right now, losing my brain, but basically we can earmark it.
Encumber?
Nope, can't encumber, but you can earmark them in a designated fund for whatever you want, and you have to get special permission, or you have to get permission, not special, but you have to get permission from the taxpayers to allow you to do it. And then when you want to spend that money on the things that you said you saved them for, you have to get permission from the community to expend them. So if we set aside money for capital improvements, they give us permission to set it aside. They give us permission to spend it when it's time for us to spend it. We set it aside for computer technology or technology issues. The other thing that possibly is in there, and this is just sort of new on my Winthrop radar, is maybe some issues around solar, use of solar. High school already does it, and Kyle Swanson, who has led a lot of that work here in Winthrop, has been talking to me a great deal about it. I'm very interested in it. I just didn't think it was any possibility to even remotely begin to have this conversation, and we possibly can. So while I think a lot of people say just give it back to the taxpayers, if we know we're going to need to eventually raise that money or ask them to raise that money down the road, it makes no sense to do that. They've already raised it, they've already paid it. Now we just need to use it appropriately and with their permission. Kelly?
Is any of the remainder above the 310,000 allowed to be used for line item things in the budget?
No.
Okay.
No. We will, so what happens in a lot of other places, and it probably will happen here still, is This revenue here is just looking at end of the year projections and then projecting a certain amount of that. What ultimately will happen is the money will be budgeted, the process will be audited, and we will get an audited amount. And we will look at that audited amount. So it's possible that next year we have two revenue lines. One says anticipated overage or revenue, and one will say audited revenue. So a lot of places get to the point where they don't do the estimated. We're doing it this year because we can, and we can utilize that to not make the taxpayers have to pay for the state's lack of funding. And but a lot of schools do have both the audited and the anticipated.
So we wouldn't be able to use this money for, say, negotiated?
No, what we can do, to some extent, and Dr. Brown did a great job with this last year, although there was some questionable decisions, to prepay for some things. Usually when you prepay for something, you end up taking it out of the budget, so you lower the budget. But again, that has some, to me, it's a little short-sighted in that if we don't have that same amount of money to prepay the following year, then we create a hole for the taxpayers.
Yep.
So, there were some things that were prepaid this year which were fine, but they were, you'll see when we do the audit report, kind of suspect. But there are some things. One of the things that Mr. Ladd and I talked about today is, the bid on the siding came back way lower than we expected it to. So would we think about paying for the siding out of this year's money? Possibly. So somebody has a question?
Jim has a question.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, my question, I know we talked a little bit about this too, is possibly looking at earmarking it for some upgrades to our fields too. I didn't know if that was still a possibility or not.
To me, that could be classified under capital expense, and so we would, capital improvements does not necessarily have to mean buildings.
Okay, thank you. I would like to look at possibly some of those as well.
Yeah, I think we have, it'll probably be a couple of months before we talk about this a little more in depth, because you guys may remember, well, maybe not the new members, but I was very concerned that we would overexpend this budget, because we are carrying 5 teachers that were not in the budget and 7 ed techs because of the COVID situation. And I had projected way back in December that we would have enough money, and it has proven to be true. And so right now, while it looks like we're going to have a healthy balance, I don't know how healthy, and the closer we get to the end of the year, then we'll have a better sense of that. And if we don't have to vote until, if the town isn't going to vote on our budget until June 7th, we'll have plenty of time to consider other things, and we'll have a much better sense of what the carryover balance will be at that point. So I'm happy to, you all have updated copies of the budget. I'm happy to go through there, and I think I shared with you that we had there was an oversight. There was a position at the high school that was inadvertently left out, that was added in. Mr. Ladd had pointed out to me that there was money that was inadvertently left out for ELL instruction. That is in there. We're still waiting. I was really hoping I'd be able to tell you guys tonight what the insurance rates were going to be. We were told we were going to hear on the 17th, but we have not heard. So I can't tell you that. I will tell you that we have budgeted 8%. Every percent that's below that, every percent that's above that, every percent equals about $15,000. So if it goes up 9%, we're going to have to add $15,000 to the budget. If it goes down 2%, we can reduce another 30, which I'm not sure we will, because this budget is pretty tight.
Do you think you'll have that for sure before the April 7th meeting?
To the extent that I can control anybody telling us
Right.
anything, yeah, it's out of our control. I suspect yes, but I obviously can't promise that. Joe?
About 15 years ago when I joined here, we had problem which has not gone away. And it's that curve which is at the top of the hill going to the high school. Now, we've had DOT people come in and tell us it's very unsafe. We've had emergency people tell us it's very unsafe. We don't have to do more than just drive up there ourselves and know it's very unsafe. And I would tell you that it would be helpful to prioritize, because if we have some money left, that's where I would say we need to put it. I mean, I hate to predict anything, we're waiting for a disaster to happen. It will happen. And that to me is just something that stands out. It seems like everybody who's ever driven up there before driven down.
Kind of a crazy question, but I've had the same thought myself driving up there. How did it ever get built that way? And maybe we can't answer that tonight, but it's just, I thought the same thing. It's the turns are exceptionally sharp. Our bus drivers are amazing that they can maneuver some of those driveways. But it's kind of crazy. So I'm kind of sharing this for a couple of reasons. I think it's probably a couple months before we have to sort of nail some of those things down. So those are great examples of things that you should make note of and think about. Maybe we build a statue for you, Josh. What do you think? That would be good.
Well, actually, are we moving? I just have a quick question. I've just been kind of biting my tongue on it a little bit the last couple meetings, because I know it's like not something that anybody really knows. But I know we've been talking a lot about the student loss and like the loss of like the subsidy and stuff for money because of COVID. But I was just wondering about like the immunization requirements for next year. If like there has been like any talk like among the higher ups.
Absolutely.
Like preparing for that, because I mean that we're just like such a small system that I feel like that could also, it could go like really well, or that like well in like as we don't lose people, or like.
Yeah, I can tell you we just had this conversation has been alive and well. I think between the grade school and the middle school, we met with the nurses, the administrative team met with the nurses. Somehow the number 46 out of my head. And I can tell you, just sent out letters and basically, it's one of the things I would just say I hate. I have no choice. The law has been passed that basically says if the immunizations do not happen, we do not have record of the immunizations, that those students can't attend. And the crazy thing is, it's good to get this word out as soon as possible. They can't attend in any manner, as they can't attend remote, because some people have already asked, well, what if we object to that and we want to teach remotely? Jim Hodgkin would say, I don't care, I just want you to attend. But the state has said, no, you have to do that or you cannot attend. So I don't have the authority to say, well, I'm just going to ignore the law. My job is, the reason we send it out already is I don't know how many of those kids are just, it slipped through the cracks. They intend to do it, they just didn't know. And this might be what they need to do to get the testing they need, and whatever. So, and that is actually a nice connection. That is a budget concern, because if we lose another 40 kids because they refuse to immunize, they choose to go to homeschool, that's going to have another hit on us. So, an excellent point. So I guess I would be certainly open to any questions from people on Zoom, people in the audience, whatever, with respect to the budget. I know I'm just one person. I know it's my first year here, but I've just been overwhelmed, and I've said to people, this has come together so amazingly well that we can face a 300,000 plus deficit and create a budget that I think meets our needs and is going to be no impact to the taxpayers on the school side. I think is great work by the administrators and you guys in making that happen. So.
I have a question, Jim.
Yep.
Do you know if, and I have been to some of the town council meetings, but I don't think we've really seen a bottom line yet, but do you know if their budget is at an increase, a decrease, or
I don't
have
know.
we heard anything about that yet?
Yeah, I do not know. I don't think it's flat, but I think it's, yeah, I really haven't made the school, I mean, the town's business, my responsibility. I mean, I will at some point, but, you know, they're still, when I met with Bernice and Jeff, you know, they're still very much, their process lags behind ours, so, I don't have those numbers yet. I know that he was hoping that the total impact, last time we talked, he said, you know, between the school, our budget was in rougher shape then. He was hoping that the impact would be less than $1 million on the taxpayers. I think since our budget has come better into line, I think he's hoping it'll be less than $500,000. So,
Awesome.
and it could be even better than that. Any questions on the budget? So let me ask you, does anybody feel a need to meet next Wednesday?
No for me.
Will we be prepared to vote on the budget on April 7th?
What am I gonna do?
You're gonna say you don't feel the need to meet next week.
He wants to know what to do, though. I think you can go out in the EI and practice chipping. God knows you need to do that.
You can come look at our next Friday.
I can do that.
Done.
You can hit golf balls down to Kelly's house.
There you
That's-
go.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of them.
All right, so that sounds good. We won't do that, and I will plan to put that on the budget, on the agenda for approval on April 7th. And then I want to remind you guys that April 12th is the town council presentation. It would be very nice if you could all join me that night. It will be a special meeting, workshop from town council, and Jeff will not be there. The town manager has some surgery upcoming. That's fine. He's talked to Sarah. She's fine with it. I'm fine with it. And so it'll just kind of be us and the town council.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, any other questions? We kind of went through that quickly.
Nothing on Zoom?
Nothing on Zoom, keep checking that.
What time is the town council meeting on the 12th?
Oh, you'd have to ask me that. I think it's
It's
7.
Usually at 7.
Thank you. Okay.
Is that Zoom still?
Yes, it is. Okay, all right.
Everybody have it on their calendars?
I do now.
What was the date on that again?
The
12th.
The 12th.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. I will entertain a motion for the first reading to delete policy DGNA, central office employee benefits and compensation.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, any discussion?
So let me this is a little bit unusual. It's the first policy deletion that I've encountered in all my years of doing this. Jana and Sue, as part of the leadership, had this discussion, and then Tim was involved in this discussion tonight. It was something that was sort of flagged. It was flagged for me when I first came in. What's referred to as a policy is a work agreement for the central office staff. There's nothing particularly wrong with the document, except I've never seen it as a policy, and it causes me some concern that it's a policy because it has, unlike most policies, it has a fair amount of what I refer to as moving parts. You know, things that will probably need to be updated on a periodic basis. And while that's not a bad thing, it just didn't seem to me that that was the right place for it to be. So I started doing some investigating. I talked to Steve Bailey at Main School Management. I talked to Charlotte Bates, who's the policy person at Main School Management. I talked to some of my superintendent friends, and they all agreed that a work agreement. And a little bit of history is that I know there was some disarray and some need for a structure, and I'm 100% supportive of a work agreement that the school committee either votes on every year or every 3 years, depending on how long we do it, and bring it forth like a CBA. But they're not a collective bargaining agreement, but they do have a work agreement. And so Sue had a copy. I think she shared it with Tim tonight, of the recommendation from Charlotte Bates from Main School Management that it probably should not be a policy. So I'd like to recommend that we take it out of the policy book. what it gets to be a little bit wonky, and we kind of straightened it out in policy committee tonight, is the process for deleting, because I've never done it before. Sue actually found this. We had talked, Jana and Sue and I had talked about it just needed a vote of the board, but it is clear in policy, we're actually in the procedure. Policy development, policy deletion is in there as well, and it does suggest that we have a first reading and a second reading. Because this is already on the agenda, and I thought the explanation was fairly simple, that we would ask you to vote on it as a first reading tonight, and then a month from now, we'll bring it back as a second reading to delete it. And it doesn't change, it doesn't tie my hands in any way at all, because while I think I need to go through it, it's my intent to go through it and do a work agreement for you guys to vote on. And I can promise you I will not get that done next month. So I know I'm being a slacker, but so it really doesn't matter to me if we follow the procedure as it's written to do it correctly. So that's the explanation for that.
Any questions? No. You all set, Joe?
I am all set. I can remember this coming up and the insertion of it. And the real question was, in many of our minds, is this the first step towards unionizing the central office employees? Some of us had a real problem saying that mostly confidential employees is the way we would look at it. And confidential employees, of course, like the state exists, but they don't have a union to back them up, but they do have basically a work agreement, which I think is perhaps the correct way to go.
So the irony of this whole thing is I did come from a district that had a 3-person bargaining unit, exactly as you just described, which was a little crazy. I think they'd have been better served with a work agreement. And it'd be even worse here, because really we have 2 full-time employees in central office, one who cannot be a part of the bargaining unit. And my administrator says Colleen can't be, she's prohibited by law. So that would leave 1 person. And that person has made it very clear they are not interested in being part of the bargaining unit. So that's, I was not aware of all of that history, but it makes perfect sense.
Good idea, Dan.
Are we ready to take a vote?
Yes.
All right, I will call a vote by hand, for those of us who can.
Yes, for Jana.
Yes for Jana, so motion is carried unanimously. Okay, I will entertain a motion to nominate Megan White as Director of Teaching and Learning for 2021-2022.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Megan should make a speech.
Don't make
Begging
me mad
for-
at this.
But I'm happy to speak to my experience this year. I was very eager to join our administrative team as the replacement director of teaching and learning, knowing that this year is going to be a really dynamic year. I've enjoyed kind of stepping into this role, and I've definitely experienced a lot of challenges, but I've appreciated the support of the administrative team. I don't think that I could have been half as successful as I've been this year in this position without their support. And really kudos to our staff of teachers who just work tirelessly to make things happen in our district. And so, we have a phenomenal team. I'm happy to be considered to continue this position next year, knowing that there are lots of, moving pieces that are still going into next year. I'm willing to take on the challenge, and I'm glad that I still have the support of people moving forward if you decide to continue to keep me in this position.
And I have to add, be remiss if I didn't say that, Megan has done a beyond phenomenal expectations this year. Some of you who've been around for a while understand some of the history, which I can't really talk about, but I think I can't imagine anybody stepping into the position and restoring the credibility to the position that Megan did instantly. And then moving it forward, and then accepting the challenges of dealing with the COVID issues and that type of stuff. was just amazing, beyond expectations. And so I'm thrilled to have her here. I can't imagine what things would have been like for all of us if she wasn't here. She's done an amazing job. So I really wholeheartedly support you voting to extend her contract.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Vote your hand.
Yes for Jana.
Okay, the motion is carried unanimously.
I saw your hand, Jana. It was good.
It is being recorded.
Oh,
Sue?
go ahead.
Congratulations.
Comment on that?
Oh,
There
yes.
was just one comment.
Sure.
It just says, congratulations to Mrs. White. She is a fantastic addition to the A team and to the district.
Thank you for that comment. I will entertain a motion to nominate Michael Delisle as Technology Coordinator for 2021-2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
Mike, do you want to talk about your experience?
So Jim's gonna make me speak too, huh? You know, it's been a challenging year from the start. You know, learning a lot of new things, making a lot of changes, infrastructure-wise. I'm thankful for Megan for helping, various other folks along the way with technology as well, since we've been shorthanded multiple times this year. Jim's been really supportive as far as letting me use a lot of the CRF funding to help the school improve technology for the future. And I don't think we could have done it without that CRF funding and Jim's support through that process. And that's just bettering the entire district for the next 4 to 5 years while that technology is being used. Hopeful to get a couple of new employees, thankful for the board for supporting adding another position. And we actually, I believe, hired somebody today after finally doing a couple of interviews, and hopeful to finalize that in the future.
So that sort of the same thing. I think you all are aware, including myself in this, but all the people who came on new, joining with the people who have been here, the veterans that have been here for a while. You know, it's tough to bring in a bunch of new people, and you know, Mike was understating it. What he had to take on in terms of technology with everything the district went through last year, with essentially outsourcing that, and that just didn't. And this is no slap on the people who attempted to do it. It's not really their bailiwick. It's not really what they were. You know, they're the best at. So he really had to come in shorthanded, learn the system, learn all of the things that needed to be taken care of yesterday, and really did a great job. And I think was really overwhelmed initially, and has slowly really learned everything. And he mentioned a couple times about my support for the CRF stuff, but it's not my area of expertise. And so it was really great to have Mike. I can speak from a visionary standpoint. Mike can understand that vision and make it happen. And I think for me, the big point, we got a lot of money through the CRF funding for technology. Mike, I think, has maximized that incredibly efficiently, and still has a very clear vision about if we get more money, and we are going to get more money. So greater things are going to happen in terms of that. But the real telling point was, and I joked about it at the time, but when I first asked the administrators for what they'd like to use the money for related to COVID issues, Mike had literally given me a list that was close to $1 million. And as it turned out, we ended up probably close to 600,000, because you probably don't remember, when the CRF2 application came out, they asked us, they said they anticipated some additional money, and what would we do? I mean, if we could use additional money to ask for an amount. So I asked for an additional $200,000, not thinking we'd ever get it. And we got it, and it was gone the second we bought it, when we got it, so, to technology. So we've done very well in hiring both of these guys. So I hopefully strongly support you approving this nomination.
I had the opportunity to sit on the interview panel for the two new positions. And it was really nice to see what a steward we have in Mike for our technology for the district. He's careful with the use of the money. He's careful to do research and plan ahead. He is visionary with where he thinks that our department should go, and I think that's huge.
Thank you for that. I agree. I could tell that from his report, his administrative report too. That was so helpful. Are we ready to take a vote?
Yes.
Okay, I will call it by hand.
Yes, Regina?
Yes, Virginia. Okay, the motion is carried unanimously.
No, we should thank
Congratulations.
you. You've been there at some really crucial spots, so it's been appreciated.
Go ahead.
Way to go, Mr. Delisle, all the way from a Winthrop grad to a Winthrop admin.
Awesome. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to nominate Jolene Randall as the Winthrop Grade School Principal for 2021-2022.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
So guess what comes next, Jolene?
I actually prepared a few words.
Look at you.
Because it's not about me, it's a thank you.
Good cheering squad, I like that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to start by saying how thankful and grateful I am to be a part of this community and to be serving as assistant principal. And I'm so thrilled to have this opportunity or to be considered to be principal. And Mr. Ladd sitting back there, and he knows that every day I say to him, like, I have nothing to complain about. Like, the staff is wonderful, kids, community, everyone's just been wonderful. I've enjoyed being assistant principal. This is my second year, and everything about it I've enjoyed. What I wanted to talk about, though, and I didn't want to talk about it early because I wanted to do it at this point, is about Mr. Ladd. And I have words here, but I'm not even sure that they do him justice. So he has been an incredible mentor for me. He has like this incredible, like you've mentioned, this incredible abundance of knowledge. He has patience, and he has to have patience because sometimes I think I annoy him, but he has patience, and he has just such a clear, focused, organized way of thinking about things, and his thoughtfulness that he puts into his work. And his life work has been here at Winthrop Public Schools for the past 30 years. And as you know, Mr. Ladd takes great pride and ownership in Winthrop Grade School. So he has graciously and gracefully shared his staff, his students, and his building with me. And together we have 3 more months to finish this school year strong. And Mr. Ladd, I'm honored to be following you in your footsteps, a gentleman who has such high integrity. And I thank you for your guidance, your mentoring, and your belief in me. And then I also want to thank you for being considered as being the next principal of Winthrop Grade School. Thank you to Superintendent Hodgkins, and thank you to you as a school committee for having the confidence in me to do so, following such a gentleman as Mr. Ladd. So thank you for your consideration.
So I just want to add, just because I did with the others, that I'm very pleased to bring Jolene forward for your consideration. It's not going through the process. I think she's earned the right to be able to be accepted for this position. It always makes me a little bit, when I think about it, if I think about it too much, it actually makes me a little bit nervous, because I actually remember Jolene as an athlete in high school, and now she's going to be a principal. Hopefully she'll be a principal here. And I've had the pleasure of watching her as a coach and in many different roles. So it's great. I love to see people step up and go through the process and be rewarded for their great work. And wherever she's been, whatever role she's been in, she's done a great job, and I'm sure she'll do an outstanding job as a principal here at the grade school as well. So strongly encourage your support for her.
Any other comments? Nothing from Zoom? Not yet, okay. All right, let's call the vote then by hand.
Yes, Virginia?
Yes, for Jana, okay, so the motion is carried unanimously. Congratulations.
Now there are comments.
Oh, now you have a comment, okay.
Way to go, Mrs. Randall, you rock. You will be a star following in the wonderful footsteps of Mr. Ladd. You will do great. Thank you for your words for Mr. Ladd. I appreciate that.
Thank you for the comments. Are there any other public comments?
So Mrs. Fawcett, very, very well, whatever, just timing, put that out a few minutes ago that public comments was coming up next to give anybody an opportunity
Thank you.
to weigh in. Nobody has, so I'd say we can move on.
Anything from the audience? All right. School committee comments. Jana?
I just wanted to say congratulations to the boys basketball team. If you have not watched that game, you need to. It will be one that will go down in history. Those boys were down by 17 points with only like 4 minutes left, and pushed through and persevered, and it was an incredible game to watch. I cannot wait to see the crystal ball. So congratulations on your three-peat. Congratulations to the top 10 students. Hopefully we'll see them in the newspaper soon. Thank you to the fire department and the staff and the students for successful evacuations a week or so ago. And just thank you to everyone who has worked so hard on the budget this year. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into it by many of the central office staff and the admin. So I just appreciate it. And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
I just want to say how nice it is that we are building back a beautiful team here with A-Team and our supports that we have. I've only had a student in this school for 5 years. He's a 4th grader. And I've only seen the district get better every year. And I'm just really proud to be part of this town and part of the school district.
Thank you. Joe?
I would just echo what Jana said. I've been amazed at the quality, although we don't have running commentary all the time. There's the different types of streaming of games, whether it be hockey or basketball. And I'm looking forward to the spring where it might be possible to stand behind the fence or something like that, 6 feet away. But it's just, you go back and you think about it, and I've thought about it in many different ways, not just in the schools, but where we've gone in the last year, actually a year and a half, when we first started hearing about the possibility of a pandemic. This has been incredible. I mean, it's certainly going to affect everyone's lives that go through it, but the fact is, it just proves that we can pull together, can learn to follow the rules, and you learn that following the rules is a smart thing to do. And I just think there are some real benefits that come out of this experience for those that have gone through it. And, but I will tell you that in the last few days, with some improvement in weather, it's really nice to see how many people are getting out of their houses, walking around the neighborhood, and my dog can growl at, so you know. But I'm pretty, and I was here with Kelly. I said, Kelly, there's a lot of things that have happened, and they're all positive things. If we can just get a few things out, talking about, I was reading some of the reports about performance levels, and they seem to be going up and everything else. That's the type of news that we've got to share with the community, because they really would like to hear those types of things. And I will tell you that they've been somewhat pleased that over the last few years we've hired back into our school system some of our graduates. I've watched this because I've been an advocate of this, and we've just hired some wonderful people that came back, and this works out well to speak for your community, that you can hire your own students. So that's what I would say.
Timothy,
I have no comments tonight.
any comments? Josh?
Just wanted to echo from Ms. Joe and Mr. Bedrowski and Ms. Dyken. But also, Nordic got second place at their state meet, so that was really exciting. The Nhs State Convention was Tuesday. Yep. And it was, so thank you to all who supported that for our GoFundMe. That was definitely, it was fun. It was different, but I was just glad to have it nevertheless. Very informative. And 1X will have their regional festival on Saturday, so thank you to administration for allowing us to do that still. It'll be a little bit different, but we're just going to be watching and listening to some, because some of them are radio plays. And that's what we'll be doing Saturday, but we'll get to spend, at least for some of us seniors, one last 1X with our drama club, and it'll be really fun, so excited for that.
Just writing that down. Thank you, Josh. Emily, do you have anything to add?
I want to thank all the high school staff for working so hard to manage the COVID case last week, because I mean, I'm in quarantine right now, but I can honestly say it really has been very difficult because the teachers have worked so hard to keep us involved in class. And like Ms. Bell said, we are so grateful that Mr. Campbell and Ms. Doucette so quickly pushed back March Madness, and that we're still able to be involved in that, so thank you.
Thank you. I don't really have anything to add. I feel like I added it throughout the whole meeting, so. There is no executive session tonight. So without objection, I can declare the meeting adjourned at 7:12.
Have a good night.